In this video, I'm going to take you through the top 5 questions that come up in assistant manager interviews, and I'm going to help you plan fantastic answers that will land you the position. So let's start with a question that is extremely common, which is, what hours can you do? And this question, I guarantee you, is going to come up. And there is a simple way to answer this, but in practice, people do it really badly. So you need to listen carefully and make sure you don't screw it up here. So the first thing you're going to show off is that you're reliable and you can be there when they need you to be there. You're also going to really emphasize flexibility. They want people that are reliable, flexible, and staff the stores at the time that they struggle to staff them. So, some great things to mention. Evenings and weekends, if you can do those, they're fantastic time. They're the most difficult time to get an assistant manager in. Instead of talking about your other commitments and why they're a huge problem and are going to cause you massive issues in the job, you have to talk about how you've managed your other commitments. Because if you talk negatively about other commitments, you're going to score really lowly on this and you're going to create problems for the manager, which means they don't want to hire you because they can hire someone else that's more flexible and doesn't have all these commitments in their way. If you can work the school holidays, it's a really fantastic thing to mention. And if you're really pushed and questioned on something and you ideally wouldn't want to work at that time, it's better to talk about, I would prefer these times, normal opening hours, but I can be flexible, and then show off as much flexibility as you possibly can. And the absolute key to success on this question is to always focus on what you can do and not what you can't do. Just don't mention what you can do. The reason people do badly on this question is they immediately go straight into, I can't work this time, I can't do Thursdays, and I can't do Sundays. That's going to be a big problem. It's just creating problems for your employer and giving them reasons why they shouldn't hire you, because they need an assistant manager at those times. And if you're saying I can never do it, you're just creating a problem. So avoid it. Always focus on the can, and you'll do really well on this question. Second question, how would you deal with a very annoyed customer? So it might be a rude customer, an aggressive customer, an angry customer. It doesn't matter. There's a general procedure that if you follow and you explain in your answer, you're going to do quite well. So the first thing you're going to talk about is de-escalation, and that is the absolute key word. Use the word de-escalation and it immediately says to the interviewer, you know what you're talking about. So de-escalation just means bringing the situation back under control, calming everyone down. That's the first thing you're going to do. Second thing you're going to emphasize, you're going to follow the company's procedures. So if the company says that the rules are this customer can't get a refund because of all these problems, you can't issue them with a refund. You're always going to stick to the company's policies, regardless of how angry the customer is. But you are going to be empathetic, and that's a really key thing. Even though you may be refusing someone a refund, you're going to do it very empathetically, and you're going to take a customer's always right approach. You're not going to be undermining, questioning, or arguing back with the customer. And the final thing to really mention is to show your employer that you've got this idea that while you're wearing their uniform or you're working for the company, you are a representative of the brand. You're the public face of the brand, and you take that responsibility seriously. So that means you're never going to argue back with the customer. You're never going to raise your voice. And you want everyone else seeing this to see someone that is calm, cool, and professional. And so if you get those 4 points in your answer, you will absolutely nail this question. Moving on to the third one, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And this question can be a trap. If you don't answer it well, or you go and do the things I'm going to talk about as a bad answer, it can lose you the interview. So a good answer starts by being credible. You're actually saying something that is believable. You're not going to go from assistant manager to chief executive or area manager so super rapidly, because that's perhaps not particularly credible. That's not the normal career progression that is available in your industry. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to show that it's planned out, that you've actually given this a lot of thought and you've got some sort of career plan. But the best thing to mention is to talk about this thing called CPD, which stands for Continuous Professional Development. So that's any training that the company or you can go on through your company or otherwise that are going to make you better at your job. And so some good talking points are to talk about, perhaps store manager and assistant manager. The step above is store manager. It's perhaps a little bit ambitious, but it's not unreasonably ambitious, and it is potentially credible for someone that is working very hard. So you're basically talking about the roadmap to +1, and you all be talking about how you can earn this promotion, not have an expectation that you're going to get it. So what would you need to do to work up to being a store manager within the same company? However, perhaps you don't want to go beyond an assistant manager, and that's fine. So you want to talk about being really exceptional at your role and what can you do to be amazing at it. So you want to be a role model for the other staff. You want to have very high standards. You want to be very, very well trained, and you want to be an expert in the company and their business and the processes that are going on there. So you want to be a center of excellence as an assistant manager. However, you can answer this question really badly. So the ways to avoid a bad answer are to avoid these things. So not genuine, so they see your example and it's just ridiculous. You've got a lack of planning. So it's amazing how many people are asked this question and just really don't have a clue and haven't thought about it. And the worst thing you can do is talk about expecting a promotion, not earning a promotion. So you could say, I see myself being the store manager in 5 years. We've not talked about how you're going to earn it. The key is talking about earning a promotion by doing your job really well. And the absolute worst thing is to say you're going to leave the industry. Like, I'm going to be an assistant manager here, but in the future, I want to do something completely different. And this is just a temporary job. Saying that is going to probably lose you the interview, so don't mention it. Right. Question 4, how would you handle an underperforming employee? And this is a question around the awkward conversations that you've often got to have with staff that are just not performing right. And I've given you 2 ideas. So the do is to support the employee and mentor them, because as an assistant manager, you're not going to be making hiring and firing decisions. That's likely to be made a level higher than you, at least, with input from human resources. So you're not making that decision. So what you have to do is you have to work with what you've got. Of course, you're going to pass on your concerns higher up because that's part of your role. But with the person that you've got that's underperforming, your main goal is to turn them from an underperforming employee to a performing employee. So you're going to support them and you're going to mentor them. You're going to identify what they're doing wrong and provide support and mentoring to get them to do the right thing. You have to make sure that you've set expectations. You know, it is expected that all workers are on time. And after you've set that expectation, you're going to be monitoring the situation. So you're going to keep notes of when they're not meeting the expectations, and also if they are starting to meet the expectations, definitely feed that on as well. What you cannot do, and you ought to say that you're not going to do these, because you ought to be explicit about this, because if you say you're not going to do this, this gives the interviewer the idea that you have the right ideas. So you're never going to lower your expectations. You have high expectations of all employees' performances, and just because an employee is a bit lazy or not doing the right thing, you're not going to stand for that. So you've got very high expectations that you never lower. However, you behave professionally. So you would never go and shout at an employee. So you're not going to do the hairdryer treatment, and you're not going to do any of the criticism of underperformance publicly. That's going to be done professionally, in private, in an office, or away from other employees. You want to get across the idea that you're solution focused. You're trying to solve the problem. So literally say, I'm very solutions focused. I've identified underperformance. I'm looking to fix that. And the other thing that's really impressive if you mention is you say you're going to act within the performance management framework. So the company will have some sort of procedure around appraisal or performance management that can be used to set targets and evaluate employee performance, and you're going to be well versed in that. You're going to understand it, and you're going to use the company's policies at all times. So if you get these key ideas in, you'll do really well in this question. The final question is a really tricky one that you've got to be very careful on. I've given you a decision tree to answer it correctly. So the question is, the store manager is unavailable and you have to make a decision. How would you handle this? And this can be a trap, and it can be a great opportunity. So the trap comes in when you don't start from the company's policies, when you just make it up. So you're going to start your answer by saying, I would be aware of exactly what the company's policies and procedures are in this case. As an assistant manager, I don't make the rules for the entire corporation. So I need to follow the rules that have been set down. So you've got two possible situations. The company's policy may be that when the store manager is away and unavailable, you do what's called deputizing. So you may take on the responsibilities of the store manager as the deputy. However, that's not always the case. It may be that you can't overstep. You have no authorization, for example, to make orders. So you're going to make sure you don't do anything that you're not authorized to do. So, for example, if a supplier comes in and needs something paid and you do not have permission to pay out money to anyone, you cannot do that. So you're always sticking to the policies. If you've got a case where you can't overstep, you're going to try and manage the situation, and you're going to seek assistance from someone who is in a position to make these decisions. So it may be that there is an area manager who is available and who can make these decisions, and that would be in the policy. But the other thing you're going to do in the event that you are allowed to deputize is you're going to seek support when needed. So if you're unsure of something, you're not going to jump to irrational decisions. But the really key thing, and if you get this in, it looks really good. You're going to say, and just say the phrase exactly, you're going to always act in the company's best interests. So hopefully this question won't catch you out now that we went through this, and you're now well versed in the top 5 questions that are most likely to come up. And finally, best of luck with your assistant manager interview, and thank you very much for watching.